Welcome to The Jewish Lens, a podcast to discuss anything and everything from a Jewish perspective. Now, please help me welcome the man who controls the media, your host, Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of The Jewish Lens. I'm Jonathan Rosen, and today I am thrilled to welcome someone who's been a producer at CNN to both Anderson Cooper and Wolf Blitzer. She's the senior producer, digital events at 70 Faces Media, and she's also the one who mainly put together the Jewish Authors Summit, which will be held virtually on Thursday, October 23rd. Please help me welcome Jennifer Rubin. Jennifer, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me and giving this opportunity to talk about the love that I have for the work that I do.
Well, we have a lot to cover, but I want to start before anything by going back with you. So where did you grow up, and what was your family life like, in particular with regard to Judaism?
So I grew up in northern New Jersey.
Oh, you are Jersey. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a Jersey girl at heart. And I would say that my upbringing was fairly typical for conservative Jews in northern New Jersey. We were very active in our synagogue. My father was president of our synagogue. I was very involved in BBYO, and it was, I grew up in a very Jewish area, not like Teaneck Jewish, but still very Jewish.
Which area?
School, I grew up in Woodcliff Lake.
Okay.
And so my public school was about 60% Jewish. We always used to joke that by the end of seventh grade, even the non-Jewish kids knew the blessings before and after the Haftorah because of how many bar and bat mitzvahs they had been to.
Pretend, yes. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So that was my upbringing. Very involved in synagogue life. Very involved in BBYO.
You were pretty observant as a child too.
I did not grow up in a kosher household.
Okay.
But we regularly went to synagogue, and I went to Hebrew school. I was bat mitzvah. I did all of those things.
And what did your parents do?
My father owned his own small graphic design business, and my mother worked in retail. She was a store manager and clothing buyer for a store in Bergen County.
And so I'm curious now, because you're putting together the Authors Summit, which we'll get to in a moment. But were you a big reader as a kid as well?
I was a voracious reader as a kid. I wish that I had the ability to sit and read as many books now as I did then.
Yeah.
But yes, I loved reading.
That was one of the things that in my household too. That was like, the reward would be a book. My dad would take me to the bookstore a lot of times and pick something out. So that was my reward instead of toys more. So what'd you go? I'm just curious. Also, I always like to know, what were some of your favorite books?
The one that pops in my mind the most that I read over and over was Ballet Shoes by Noah Streatfeild.
I thought I would say that too. I've never read it even. So yes.
And then I also read Little Women many, many times. I wanted to be Jo March when I grew up.
And what did you want to be as a kid? Jo March.
So, I always felt that whatever I did would have something to do with writing. I was a journalism minor in college. And I just, I liked writing. I also liked, I loved TV, and I never wanted to be like a performer, but I wanted to be involved in TV production, like as a screenwriter or something like that.
Did you ever pursue it at all, or like try writing things?
No, I certainly took lots of creative writing classes in college, but it was never what I, once I really started thinking about what I wanted to do, my career was less about creative writing and more in the journalism realm.
So right away, when you went to college, it was for journalism. You knew right away that that's what you wanted to do, the path that you wanted to go.
Nobody knows what they want to do when they. No, I actually. My first major in college was history and pre-law, which also had a lot of writing involved in it. But I think it was that kind of writing about history that got me more interested in journalism.
Funny you talk about the performing it. For a time in college, I was a theater major for a brief period of time as well. So, and in college, were you involved in Jewish groups also? I don't know.
Not really. There weren't Jewish groups per se where I ended up getting my degree from. I graduated from Montclair State University in northern New Jersey. But there wasn't like, in the same way that where I grew up, it was so Jewish. There wasn't like a need. I didn't feel like there was a need to be involved in a Jewish organization to express my Judaism because it was everywhere around me. Though I will say that throughout college, I was a chapter advisor for BBYO. So I suppose I did have my Jewish connections in that way.
Had you ever been to Israel growing up at all?
So I did when I was a sophomore in high school, I went on the March of the Living. So that was my first experience going to Israel, was part of the March of the Living.
So right out of college. So what was your first job right out of college then?
My first job right out of college was working as a production assistant for CNN.
You started right off at CNN. I didn't know if you did something else first.
No, I started right off at CNN. I had interned for them for 2 semesters before graduating. It's actually, we are recording this on September 11th, and that really, honestly, September 11th really solidified my desire to go into journalism and into television news production. And I got an internship with them, and then started working there full time in December 2023.
But you were there. So you said you were there on September 11th?
No, I was not there on September 11th. I was. I had just started at Montclair as a broadcasting major. I had been like an English major and a journalism minor, and then I switched to being a broadcasting major and a journalism minor.
Okay.
And that's the degree that I ended up getting. But it was, 9/11 when I started watching CNN 24 hours a day, like so many did. Right. And also like living in Hoboken on 9/11, seeing things with my own eyes. I said, this is what I want to do. Watching Aaron Brown, who was the CNN breaking news at the time, throughout for, days and days and days and weeks of post 9/11 coverage, I said, that's what I want to do. And when it was time to get my internship, I was so fortunate that I got an internship with Newsnight with Aaron Brown at CNN. And I started there summer 2003 and fall 2003. And then I graduated in the fall and started working there as a full-time employee immediately.
You also were, so like I said at the beginning, you worked for Anderson Cooper and Wolf Blitzer. So how did those gigs come about first?
So I was working for Aaron Brown, and then Katrina happened. And in the post-Katrina coverage, they had basically combined Anderson Cooper's show with Aaron Brown's show. And so I was working for both of them. And this was before Anderson Cooper was who he is today. Fine. But so they combined the 2 shows, and then they let Aaron go, and I was working for Anderson. And it was a wonderful experience. I really loved it. But this was in the end of 2005, beginning of 2006. They had just launched the Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer, and I really wanted to be a part of the upcoming election coverage. So this was 2006 was a midterm, but they were already thinking about how they would cover the 2008 election, which was up until that point, one of the most consequential elections of my life. And I really wanted to be a part of that. And so there was an opportunity to then move from New York to DC to work with Wolf Blitzer, and then by default be a part of the political coverage team.
I've interviewed, first of all, I have to ask how Anderson and Wolf were as people, because I've interviewed people that when they meant, I asked them about some famous people who I might be, maybe liked. They're like, oh well. So it's like you hate hearing those stories. So were they nice as people as well?
They were both incredibly nice, both incredibly different people. And it's funny, I say often that their on-screen personalities are kind of the opposite of their in-person personalities. Anderson, I think especially now, he is a lot more like relatable on camera. And in person, he tends to be, more reserved and protects his privacy for many reasons. Extremely nice and, treats his staff really well. And then whereas Wolf tends to be very like straightforward and direct on camera, he is very relaxed behind the scenes, jokes around with his staff all the time. They were both really wonderful to work for.
So when you work for someone or someone's in your case, or in the public eye, like Anderson Cooper or Wolf Blitzer, you said Anderson wasn't as big then, but Wolf was though. So is there a certain like wow factor at first, or like intimidation that you're working with someone like that?
In a sense, yes. Really, the story that I really share with in relation to those things is when I first started working as an intern for Newsnight with Aaron Brown, and the day that I started was the day that all of his staff returned back to New York from Atlanta, where they had been for the shock and awe first couple months of the war in Iraq. And so it was the first day back in the New York office, and somebody had ordered dinner for the whole team. And I, as an intern, was helping to set up the buffet for all the food that had been sent. And I was helping myself to some hummus. It was a Middle Eastern spread that had been, obviously. And excuse me. And Aaron came in, and like other people kind of let them cut in front of him in line. And I was like, well, I've got the hummus spoon in my hand. I'm going to put it on my plate before I hand it to you. And apparently that like really impressed him because he was so used to like people being so deferential to him. And I was just like, you're just another person. And there's no reason that, I should give you the spoon out of my hand. And so that was always my approach in dealing with any of the talent, was just, you're just another person. Yes, I respect you incredibly, but
especially when it comes to hummus. Yes.
Yes, especially when it comes to hummus. But I think, there's definitely there's definitely the awe of, oh my God, this person is a celebrity.
Right.
But I never treated them in that way.
That's good. So you're at CNN for a few years. So it's a very well-known place for news. So what made you decide that, okay, I'm going to go to try something else?
So I was, during the 2008 election season, I was also pursuing a master's degree in journalism and public affairs at American University. I was in DC now. And it was an incredible program filled with people who were already working in the industry. And it was a weekend program. So we would, do our regular jobs during the week and then go to school from 9 to 5 on Saturdays, which was fine in the run up to the 2008 election when I was only working like 50 hours a week. And then it got to the point where we were working 70 to 80 hours a week and commuting back and forth between New York and DC every week. And then I was, going to school on the weekends. And it got to the point where I had to make a choice between continuing my job at CNN or finishing my master's. And I chose to finish my master's. So I left CNN, and that was the job that I got post CNN for a newspaper called Education Week, which is a nonprofit newspaper reporting on K through 12 issues throughout the country. And I loved that work. And it allowed me to continue my master's, but two, I really felt like switching to nonprofit work was so much more meaningful than what I had been doing at CNN. And I loved what I was doing at CNN. It really was a dream job, but moving into the nonprofit industry really seemed to
Resonate with you?
fill my passions more. Yeah.
I mean, I always think it's admirable, and anyone who does like nonprofit work. But was there some sort of like maybe a little bit of a fear factor? Hey, maybe I shouldn't. Should I leave this gig like at CNN, to do this?
Oh, 100%. The idea of leaving CNN, which had been my dream job,
Right.
was a very difficult decision. It was very difficult, but in the end, I knew that, certainly looking back on it now, it was 100% the right decision. But I felt that I was, that I was very fortunate to have the experience that I had, but then also to find opportunities that better fit my life overall.
So how'd you wind up eventually at 70 Faces Media?
So after, I worked at Education Week, I finished my master's, and then my fiance at the time and I decided to leave DC and move to Austin, Texas, which is where I live now. It's where his family is. And, so while I loved working for Education Week, it was not a job that I would have been able to do remotely. And I knew that there would be additional opportunities in Austin, and as well as we were, at that point in my life, we were looking to start a family and all of that. So I took some time off of work. And then when it was time to go back to work, there were opportunities within the Jewish community here in Austin. The first one was working for the Chabad at the University of Texas, where I was their director of administration. And then I worked at the Jewish Day School here as their technology integration specialist and technology teacher. And then I worked for my synagogue for 4 years as their director of events and technology. And I was with the synagogue all throughout the pandemic, as many synagogue employees dealt with during that time. I was a conservative synagogue, so we had no electronics of any sort other than microphones in our sanctuary. And all of a sudden, we had to figure out how to get our services to the people instead of the people coming to our services. And because I had this background in television production, it worked really well. And I, was able to implement all of the policies and technology that we used at the synagogue for streaming our services and all of that. And then it had been over 4 years that I was at the synagogue, and I was looking for an opportunity to have a larger impact than just the local Austin Jewish community. And an opportunity at 70 Faces arose, and I applied for it with the opportunity. It was, at that point, the role was somewhat nondescript, as roles in Jewish organizations sometimes are, but 70 Faces Media had this idea of producing this online conference for Jewish professionals to train them in, digital marketing and social media and online fundraising skills, which are things that 70 Faces, as the largest digital Jewish media organization in North America, felt that, they were really equipped to provide this training to other nonprofit organizations. So they were looking for somebody who could, implement this idea that they had. So I was brought on in August of 2022, and they said, here, we have this idea, make it happen. And in February of 2023, we launched our first Jewish Digital Summit.
So I'm going to get to that too, but I have to go also with Chabad. The last interview that I just posted actually was with someone from Chabad. I absolutely love the organization. So my family has always been very involved with them too. My sister works for Chabad also. It's just been such a welcoming organization overall for me at least, for my opinion. So all right, so 70 Faces Media does all these things. So your responsibilities, you kind of like touched upon it, but what exactly did they say that your responsibilities are? Because it sounds like just like whatever comes to mind, hey, let's get Jennifer to do it.
Yeah, that is kind of how it is, and especially from my experience working in a synagogue, where like, oh, we have this idea, let's find somebody who we can hand it off to. The idea of wearing multiple hats, I feel like, is very, very common amongst Jewish professionals. So yeah, they had done a survey of some readers and other Jewish organizations that they partnered with in the past, and they basically had an outline document of what we want to do, and my role was to ideate it, to make it happen, from the logistics of setting up the platform that we were using for the conference. They had done that research before I was brought on board, but kind of building the back end of the conference registration and website, coming up with that topic ideas, finding the speakers, soliciting sponsors, advertising it to reach the audience and attendees, basically all of it.
70 Faces, from what I see, is kind of like, it's an umbrella for like a lot of other sites too. Like I see like Feller and Nosher and others. So do the companies, are they like autonomous? Do they have to go through 70 Faces before doing anything? So what's the role?
No, they are not. They are not autonomous. Each brand has its own identity, but it is one large organization. 70 Faces Media was actually formed 10 years ago in 2015 when myjewishlearning.com bought the Jewish Telegraphic Agency. The Jewish Telegraphic Agency has been around for over 100 years. Right. And so My Jewish Learning combined with the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, and with that as part of Jewish Telegraphic Agency became the New York Jewish Week, which had been a print publication but is now solely online. And then under My Jewish Learning, Feller came into being, along with Nosher, Feller being parenting, Nosher being food, and then the latest, the newest of our brands being Hey Alma, which is a kind of feminist millennial Gen Y, Gen Z perspective. So they all operate as one organization. With brands,
70 Faces.
70 Faces. 70 Faces is the parent organization of the 6 other brands underneath it.
Right. Before we get to the summit itself, you and I spoke a couple of weeks ago. So why is there a need for this summit right now? What do you see as the status of Jews in publishing? Because it's right now, that's the theme of this year's summit, which is, what should Jews do in publishing, basically. So what do you think is the status of Jews in publishing right now?
So I will say, there's 2 separate summits. There is still the Jewish Digital Summit, which happens every February, which we're planning the 4th year for right now, which is a 3-day online event. And then there is this Jewish Author Summit, which is a 1-day event happening in October. And the Jewish Author Summit came about because of the climate for Jewish authors in today's publishing world. There's always been anti-Semitism, that, nobody's going to argue with that. But certainly post October 7th, there has been increased anti-Semitism across the board. And in the publishing industry, this has manifested itself in a number of different ways. Authors having books that they had publishing deals for, having those deals canceled, agents dropping clients because they don't think that they can sell Jewish books, authors with works already out there having their speaking engagements canceled, whether they be at bookstores or wherever. There's so many things that are making it more difficult for Jewish authors to get their work out there. And this applies to not just Jewish authors who write on Jewish topics or have heavily Jewish characters, but Jewish authors who are authors who just happen to be Jewish. There's, the great example of Jewish Telegraphic Agency reported on of Gabrielle Zevin, who is the author of, amongst a number of books, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which is a fabulous book. But Gabrielle Zevin, who is Jewish, never posted anything on social media about being Jewish, never made any statements about anything related to Israel, never, doesn't write about Jewish topics in her books, who doesn't write about Jewish topics in her books, was lambasted on social media because she is Jewish. Even though she never put anything out there about being Jewish, people were boycotting her, people were protesting her appearances, people were leaving really awful comments on her website and her book reviews. And this is something that, for somebody like Gabrielle Zevin, who had, an audience and already lots of publicity around her books, she had an outlet to speak against what was happening. But for beginning, for authors that are earlier in their careers or don't have the same publicity or don't have best-selling books, but still have books that they want to get out there, what recourse do they have?
I talk about this often on here too. Whenever I post this podcast, for example, I post anything, and it doesn't have to be anyone on behalf of Israel. It doesn't have to be anyone. It could just be an author talking about their book, like a children's book. I will get trolls commenting on this podcast. So in the comment section. So it doesn't, I always say that anti-Zionism is just, excuse for saying I hate Jews. That's basically, it's just substituting Zionist with it. So you have all the authors that want to say it. My feeling is always that we need to speak up, and no one's speaking up enough. So I'm glad that this is coming about. So, but I'm curious first. I see that publishing is very unwelcoming for Jews, and I go back even pre-October 7th. I had many years ago that as an author, I was writing a Jewish-themed book, and my agent at the time told me it was a Jewish mythology book. Told me make it less Jewish. So this is even before October 7th. So now it's just gotten more disgusting since then. But what's going on in your field? I want to know, because many creative fields, have this. But how is it in what you do? Do you see it or feel it personally in anything that you do right now?
I will say that I am, I suppose, fortunate that I personally have not experienced any increased anti-Semitism since October 7th. But I'm not regularly writing articles that have my name on them where people can comment on them. But where I see it is in what I hear from the people that we're trying to reach. In relationship to this Jewish Author Summit, the number of authors and writers and agents that I have spoken to in researching and preparing for this summit, every single person has at least a half a dozen examples of things that have affected them personally. Authors who, were writing about Jewish topics and post-October 7th Judaism, some being told, oh, this is too sad. We're not going to publish anything that is sad about Jews, or this is too happy. We're not going to talk about how Jews should be moving forward post October 7th. So it's, from both ends, people are getting dropped or being told that they can't write what they want to write because there is no audience for it.
You have the common denominator you just said. It's just they want to use Jews. It doesn't, we can't do happy things about Jews. We can't do sad things about Jews. And I think I told you when you and I first spoke, I'm a former literary agent, and I would get rejection saying, we already acquired a Jewish book. After we acquired a Jewish book on a particular topic, just the quote was a Jewish book. So there is a quota system going on. But you do this. Is this the first year that you're doing the Author Summit too? You've done them a couple of years now, though.
No. This is the first year we are doing this Jewish Author Summit.
Okay.
last year, we partnered with the American Jewish Press Association for a virtual conference for Jewish journalists.
Okay.
Where we again taught skills related to online work. This is the first time that we are doing something specifically for Jewish authors and storytellers in the creative realm.
When did you decide to do that this year? What it said, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what we should do to help out authors.
So we've been, as part of our overall work with the Jewish Digital Summit as a whole, we have, since the beginning, been looking for more ways to tailor the work that we're doing with the Jewish Digital Summit to more niche audiences, to more directly affect specific groups of Jews or Jewish professionals and the work that they're doing. So this particular opportunity came about thanks to a grant from the UJA Federation of New York. They issued, there was a cohort of about half a dozen grantees who were all given funds to do some sort of programming directed at Jewish writers and authors in this post-October 7th time of anti-Semitism. So some of these are the Jewish Book Council, who were partnering with a lot for this event with their 100th Jewish Book Month celebration. The Jewish Theological Seminary is now offering an MFA in creative writing thanks to a grant from UJA Federation of New York. So that was kind of the impetus for it. We were looking for more targeted audiences to help train for whatever purposes they need, at the same time that UJA was looking to invest money in helping Jewish storytellers.
I'm glad that it's comforting, at least, to know that organizations, that it's on their radar what's going on, that they want to do something. I actually had an interview Monday where someone else was talking about the need for this as well. So I'm glad to see that other organizations are doing it. So let's talk about this year's summit, which, I feel fortunate enough to be part of it. I'm honored to be part of it. So what's going to be in it? What can people look forward to? What's the programming that people can look forward to should they attend?
Absolutely. So we are having, of course, a panel on podcasting, which thank you for participating in that panel. That is one of about 8 sessions that we are offering. And that podcasting session will be both, how do you as an author get on a podcast to promote your work, and or if you want to start your own podcast, what are the things that you should think about in doing it? The summit as a whole will begin with a keynote conversation really addressing this issue of anti-Semitism in the publishing industry. And we have Erica Dreyfus, who is very well known with her Jewish Binders group and the Substack newsletter that she puts forward with lots of tips and resources for other Jewish writers, along with Samantha Vinokur Meinrath, who has written kind of one of the definitive post-October 7th books about anti-Semitism, and Sharon Vane, who is a book columnist and also started a organization here in Austin, Texas, to fight anti-Semitism. So the conference will open with this incredible discussion that will be moderated by Felissa Kramer, who is the editor-in-chief of the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, really addressing the topic as a whole and setting the stage for the audience and kind of grounding everybody in why we're doing this event. And then there will be a few hours of more specific digital training, including the podcasting panel. We're having another panel on Substack, which is a great way for writers to get their work out there. Another session on using social media to put yourself out there, mostly focusing on Instagram. A session on self-publishing and independent publishing. If you're and all the social media, the podcasting, the Substack, all of these are, the purpose is to provide Jewish authors and storytellers and writers with the skills they need to promote their work on their own. If they're not going to have an agent, if they're not going to be published by a big house, what are the avenues that you can take to get your work out there, to promote it, to reach the audiences that you want to reach with your work? We're also, like I just said, having a session on self-publishing and independent publishing. Okay, if you're not going to get a deal with a big publishing house, how do you still get your book made? What are the steps to take? What are the things you need to look out for in going that route? We're also going to be having a session that we're excited that Naomi Firestone Teeter from Jewish Book Council and a number of others will be leading a session on growing a global audience. So we know that the majority of our audience are US, Canada, or Israel based. So how do you reach markets beyond those? And so we also have a couple really great speakers from the UK who will be joining that. We have a session on building your website. So if you're not, obviously there's more to having an online presence than Substack or Instagram or whatever it is. So there will be a session specifically like real hardcore digital skills on creating your own author website. Another session on advice from Jewish literary agents on what is selling now and how to kind of secure an agent and get your work out there. And then we're having our closing conversation with Isaac Rudansky, who I think really kind of epitomizes the worlds that we are bringing together with this. Isaac was very fortunate earlier this year to sign a 3-book deal with a major publishing house for a series of young adult fantasy novels. And in his day job, in his non-author job, he runs a digital marketing agency. So he really has the experience from both ends of what we are pulling together for this Jewish Authors Summit.
It's funny. You and I spoke, and I had said yes, I would love to do this, and I had no idea who else was going in. And then I see you also have my agent doing a panel. I had no idea that she was doing it beforehand.
Oh,
so, Yael is there. Yael Levy.
Yael Levy is fantastic.
Yes.
I had such an incredible conversation with her in speaking to her prior to having her come on board to be on that panel, and the stories that she has to tell. And I'm also so glad that that the higher ups at Allswanger gave her permission to share those stories of what she has encountered as a Jewish agent trying to sell Jewish books.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I still haven't even discussed it with her, but I saw that she was on it, so I'll love her also as well. So how can people attend the summit and find out more information about it right now? And it is, and I saw it right, it is free, right?
Yes, and thanks to our grant from the UJA Federation of New York, we are offering this opportunity for free. All anybody has to do is go to 70facesmedia.org/authors-summit, and I'm sure you will, Jonathan, put the link up there in your editing magic. But you just have to, you go to the website, you can see who all of the speakers and all of the sessions are, and there's a button that says apply now. You just hit that button, fill out the form, and you will be able to attend. We are screening all of the applicants to make sure that we're not getting any trolls in there. But it is fully free to attend. You don't have to pay a thing. And all of the sessions are being recorded and will be available to all of the attendees after the fact. So especially we know except for the opening and closing, there's 2 sessions each hour. You can't be in 2 places at the same time as much as we may try to. So everything is being recorded, and you'll be able to access all of the sessions afterwards to catch up on what you missed or review what somebody said.
And for anyone watching this, I'm just letting you know that the link is going to be in the description of this video. So just scroll down. You can just access it easily on the link there. So I read also in your bio that you're now pursuing a Master's of Arts in Jewish Professional Studies. So I'm curious, how is that going back to taking classes again? I mean,
Yeah, well, so I'm not currently in classes for it, but um, when I participated in the graduate program at the Spertus Institute in Chicago. Spertus is just such a wonderful program, and I was fortunate to be able to participate in most of it during the pandemic. It is a program that is partially online and partially in person. It is a program that is meant for Jewish professionals, so it's easy to work around our schedule. I still have one or two more classes to finish up, but I would say that Spertus is really wonderful about allowing students to work around their work schedules, and it's also a cohort program, which is so wonderful because you really build strong relationships and connections with the other people that you're in class with.
yeah, I took an online master's and loved it. Loved it as well. It's also a lot of connections, like you said. But you live in Austin now. What's the
Yes.
Jewish life like there right now?
So Jewish life in Austin is actually really amazing. It is a very close-knit community. It is also, Austin is one of the very few cities in the world where the Jewish population is growing. Between the University of Texas, where we have a lot of people come for their doctorates and then become part of the Jewish community, and because of the tech scene in Austin, Texas. Some people refer to it as the Silicon Hills versus the Silicon Valley in California. So between the university and the tech industry, there is a very much growing population. There's a huge growing population in Austin in general, but a huge growing Jewish population, where the Austin Jewish community is actually in the process of conducting a new survey, but of the community as a whole. But estimates say that there are about 50,000 Jews in the greater Austin area. And Austin is very unique in that 90% of Jewish life in Austin is organized and all on one gated Jewish community campus. So we have Shalom Jewish Community Campus in Northwest Austin, and on that campus it's the JCC, the Jewish Federation, Jewish Family Services, the Jewish Day School, a Jewish preschool, and three different congregations, a Reformed, Conservative, and Orthodox congregation, all on this 40-acre gated campus. So the majority of Jewish life does kind of revolve around that centrally located campus. But it's great. It's, when I first moved here 15 years ago, it was the first time that I lived in a place where I really had to seek out the Jewish community. But once you find it, you're a part of it, and it's really wonderful.
It's funny. Before I moved to Florida, Texas, it was like really a toss-up between Texas and Florida, and I wound up here. But still, there's a lure in Texas to me still, even to this day. That who knows. So do you feel anti-Semitism at all in the streets, like in other places, like New York and like LA now, like you see a lot of it. But do you see that there or no?
There is some anti-Semitism. There certainly UT during the campus protests of the past 2 years, UT had a large demonstration, but also the state was pretty quick about putting an end to those campus protests, for better or for worse, the state's involvement in that. And
I'll say better right off, better, but yes. Okay.
Yeah. There have been certainly instances of, flyers being distributed on people's properties, spouting anti-Semitic things. There was actually a synagogue here during I think it was in 2021 or 2022, where there was actually an arson incident at one of the synagogues. Nobody was hurt. It was overnight, but it caused, millions of dollars of damage to the building. But I don't feel, nor have I ever felt unsafe walking around, wearing my Star of David. I have never been afraid of like direct attacks on myself. The school that my kids go to, they go to public school, but there's actually, I think also because of the tech industry, there is a very large Southeast Asian population in Austin, and especially in the kids that my school go to, the school that my kids go to. So I always say, while there's only a handful of Jews in each of their grades, the majority of kids in the school don't celebrate Christmas. So we don't really have to worry about that. Whereas some parts of Texas, schools take trips to, see nativity plays in the winter. I don't have to worry about that in our school. But yeah, I've always felt safe, and the Jewish community, Shalom Austin, works very closely with local law enforcement to keep all the Jewish organizations, whether or not on the Jewish community campus or in the city at large, that the local law enforcement is very good about working to keep everybody safe.
All right, so you have this summit coming up, and you have, what's next for you besides the summit? Is it the digital summit, the one in February? That's the next thing?
Yes. So we've got this Jewish Author Summit, how to reach new readers now, on October 23rd. And while finalizing all of the details for that, I am well in the throes of planning for our 4th annual Jewish Digital Summit, which is in February. And that event is for Jewish professionals and lay leaders to teach them the online marketing, social media, digital fundraising skills. I say to people when I'm talking to them about the Jewish Digital Summit, if you or the organization you are working for are looking to reach, engage, or raise money from Jews online, then you should come to the Jewish Digital Summit. And I will say that I've never met a Jewish professional who says, no, we're not looking to try and do any of those things.
Okay, so you said it once before, but let's give another opportunity. How can people follow 70 Faces on social media? And how can people follow you on social media?
So you can follow 70 Faces on social media, I would say, by going to 70facesmedia.org and going to each of our brands. All of our brands, My Jewish Learning, Jewish Telegraphic Agency, Feller, they all have their own social media presence. So go to our websites to check out all those links, to follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And I think Hey Alma also has a TikTok presence. To follow me, the best thing to do is reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect with anybody there. And you can also, if you follow 70 Faces Media on LinkedIn, then you'll also get to be kept up to date on all of these initiatives that we are doing.
And I have to ask before I let you go here, there's another Jen Rubin. So how do you feel about that? Because I said to you, there's another Jonathan Rosen, and I always tell people I hate the guy. No, but I don't. Because I see a lot, I sometimes get emails mistaken for him. And it's like, I would really like to go to that.
Yeah, so there is another Jennifer Rubin. I have not ever been a columnist for the Washington Post, so I am not her. My Instagram is actually not that Jennifer Rubin, though I don't really post much on Instagram. But you're welcome to follow me there too. So I get people asking me all the time if I am her. I am not her. I think that my mother has mistakenly sent her emails that she intended to send to me. What's funny is that my brother-in-law is named Ben Shapiro, and there is another Ben Shapiro who is also not.
That's great.
Who is also not a conservative. My brother-in-law is not a conservative mouthpiece. as the other bench bureau is, but I think that's it's the nature of having common names.
That's great. Well, Jennifer, I want to thank you again for coming on. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. I look forward to the summit. I think it's important, and thank you for doing it. And hopefully a lot of people will attend and get some badly needed information right now. But
Yes, thank you again so much for having me. It's really been wonderful to share about these projects that I love working on.
I think I'll sign us off now. Again, I'm Jonathan Rosen. This has been The Jewish Lens. Again, a very special thanks to Jennifer Rubin. Go attend the conference, the summit, and please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thanks for tuning in to The Jewish Lens, where all items used was strictly kosher.